Hi, I'm Diane McGarry with Dracut Arts. With me today are co-host Tom McGarry and September Arts Event composer and guitarist Thatcher Harrison. Neither this interview nor his performance will be signed. As a guitarist, Thatcher plays everything from classical guitar to jazz guitar to fingerstyle guitar to popular rock guitar. As a composer, he deftly combines influences of the many genres of music to create pieces that satisfy both the heart and the mind. As an accomplished competitor, Thatcher has won 20 prizes in regional, national, and international music competitions. As a composer, he specializes in what he calls classical fusion composition. While Thatcher is best known for his compositions for solo guitar, he also loves to compose for different instruments and ensembles, and he has completed several commissions for soloists and ensembles alike. He has performed in notable concert halls, including Viol Recital Hall at Carnegie Hall, Jordan Hall, Symphony Hall, the Baryshnikov Arts Center. He has also completed several commissions as a composer. Thatcher is currently studying for his Bachelor's of Music degree in classical guitar performance at New England Conservatory with Elliot Fisk and Jerome Moff, and he studies privately with flamenco virtuoso Grisa Goryechev and classical guitar virtuoso Scott Borg. Thatcher, thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. It's an honor and a pleasure.
Could you tell us about what classical fusion is and how you chose that genre to compose in?
Sure. Well, sort of the idea of categorization for my compositions sort of comes from an idea that I got from one of my all-time musical inspirations, the late great Michael Hedges. Michael Hedges was known as a guitarist who, in addition to basically inventing, in all historical reference, what we would now refer to as percussive fingerstyle guitar, he would explore many different genres, from classical to rock to jazz to new age to minimalism to basically anything you can think of. And throughout his career, people had a very difficult time putting a label on his music. And one of his most famous quotes, and I very much like this quote, even though record stores are not nearly as prevalent as they used to be. He once said, "If I like a record so much, I don't care what aisle in the record store I have to walk to get it." But so for years, I would always hesitate to put a label on the music that I write because I write in so many different styles. But eventually, a lot of people started to ask me, what type of music do you write? And I figured that the simplest way to answer it and the most effective way to answer it would be classical fusion. And that is exactly what it sounds like. The foundations of the compositions are classical, both in composition form and performance technique. But from there, I can incorporate basically anything that I wish. I can incorporate jazz music, rock music, film score music, world music, fingerstyle guitar music, what have you. And in the end, my greatest goal is for everyone in the audience, or as many people as possible, to find a point of reference, something that resonates with them. Because, in the immortal words of Robert Plant, long before the music business started, the reason that people played music was to make people happy.
That's so true. What is the most important thing about music, you think?
Well, I could answer that question, but I think that Robin Williams, as Professor Keating in the movie Dead Poet Society, answered it far better. This question applies more to the arts in general than music specifically, but of course, music is an art. He said, and this I think also comes up as an issue because people will say, there's a common question that's asked: is the writer or the artist or the musician more important than the doctor or the lawyer or the business person? And what Robin Williams' character said was, he said, professions like medicine, engineering, these are noble professions and they are necessary to sustain life. But the arts, music, visual arts, literature, film, that's what we live life for. So I'm under no false pretenses here. I'm aware that if during my concert someone has a heart attack, my music isn't really going to help them very much. But I'm also aware that musicians and artists as a whole have a phenomenal power to take people, no matter what situations they might be in, and give them the opportunity to hopefully forget about the outside world for a certain period of time and enjoy what, as William's character said, we are meant to live life for.
So you want to transport people to another place and help them to feel better.
It could be that, or maybe it could make them feel better about the place they were in. I mean, if you remember, of course, the movie The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy leaves Kansas back in 1989 when they celebrated the 50th anniversary of the film. Kansas wouldn't do it because they said, as all the bad things that happen to Dorothy are in Kansas. When she leaves Kansas, it gets bright. But then again, there's no place like home. So yes, it could be transporting other people, and especially by means of world music in different genres, I can hopefully touch on a memory or a moment that people have. But it doesn't even necessarily have to be that. Maybe it's more allowing people to come to terms with the world that they might be in at the time.
Hmm. I have to say, in The Wizard of Oz, it became color when she got to Oz. And that was the first movie that had color. Before that, there was only black and white. So it was pretty exciting. I know you're younger, you
Right.
probably didn't experience it that way.
Well,
But that was,
what I've heard from the smartest people I know is that it wasn't actually the first film. What actually happened is that the world became color when that happened. But previously, they were all color films of black and white.
Yep.
I'm just kidding.
so, can you tell me what fingerstyle guitar playing is? I'm not familiar with that term.
Certainly. Well, actually, fingerstyle guitar is a very, very unique genre because generally speaking, let's say, okay, talking to the person who might be watching this program who like and had not heard the term fingerstyle before, if I were to say rock and roll, you would associate that to a specific type of music, same with classical music, jazz music, whatever, what have you. And the names of the genres are defined by the characteristics of what happens in the music itself. Now, if you use a very basic definition for fingerstyle, what actually makes fingerstyle such a phenomenal genre is that the term fingerstyle is used to define the genre, not defining the type of music that you play. It's defining the manner in which you play. Fingerstyle, of course, would define guitar with your fingers. Now, as a very broad definition, some people would argue that fingerstyle, its simplest form, is any type of guitar that you play with your fingers without using a plectrum. So, for example, in the folk world, James Taylor, who played fingerstyle guitar in the classical guitar world, others ago, anyone would be a fingerstyle guitarist. In the jazz world, Joe Pass would be a fingerstyle guitarist. So that's a very broad definition. But if we want to narrow that down to a more historically, something that's more apropos to what the general someone who is familiar with fingerstyle, if you want to talk to them, they're generally speaking, and I hate to reduce it down to this approach generality, but I'm just going to do it to make it simple. There are, generally speaking, there are two main schools of fingerstyle. The first school is was originated and popularized by guitarists such as Merle Travis, Jerry Reed, and Chet Atkins. Oftentimes people call that phone picking, or to sort of the term that Merle Travis invented, the boot check, with the technique used with the phone pick. So that's one form, and that technique originated, at least been popular for the century. Then Michael Hedges around the early 1980s, a guy Michael Hedges and several other people, Hedges was only made famous. They started initiating what many people would consider the second school of fingerstyle. What that is trying to make your guitar sound like a full band by using percussion, slap harmonics, artificial harmonics, things like that. So generally speaking, there are two main schools of fingerstyle, and now there's also a third school that's coming in, mainly initiated by the acoustic guitar program at the forgive my horrible pronunciation of German, the Hochschule für Musik Karl Maria von Weber de Dresden, in Dresden, Germany, which has an acoustic guitar program, and they're initiating sort of what we might refer to as a third stream of fingerstyle, which is kind of a blend, generally nylon string based. It's actually basically classical fusion, Many of my greatest influences are alumni from that program, such as Sonke Meinen, Carlijn Langendijk, David Lindorfer, just to name a few. Um, and what they do is they do basically what I described as classical fusion. They are founded in classical music, but then from there they can incorporate techniques from fingerstyle guitar as well as any other genre. So I realize I went the long way around to tell you that, but now for any of you who might want to write a paper about fingerstyle guitar for school, you have all the information that you'll need.
So we have a piece that you've composed, I believe, to play called Child's Play. Would you like to say anything before we listen?
Certainly. Well, actually, Child's Play. Okay. So there are, I believe, two pieces that will be played in this program, and they actually both of them illustrate different schools of fingerstyle. So this piece, Child's Play, while somewhat classical based in composition, is most indicative of of the second school of fingerstyle, which I call percussive fingerstyle. So when you see this performance, this piece is founded on a motif that I play with the left hand. That's a classical technique, but the playing techniques will be more indicative of the second school of fingerstyle, percussive technique. So while you're watching, try to see all these different techniques that I talked about.
Great.
Enjoy.
That was
Thank you
great.
very much.
That was
It
fun.
looked very difficult technically. Would you say that it is for you? I don't know how to judge such things, but it looked both technically difficult and fun.
It is both. And to answer that question, so as I might have previously stated, so the foundation for that piece was composed as an homage to one of my greatest influences as a guitarist and composer, the French Canadian fingerstyle guitarist and composer Antoine Dufour. And what separates, in my opinion, Dufour's music from many other brilliant fingerstyle players is he most fingerstyle players, percussive fingerstyle players, generally come from metal, which is great and it creates a lot of music. Dufour came actually more of a classical background. So there's a difference oftentimes between horizontal and vertical composition. By that I mean, does a composer primarily compose lines or does a composer primarily compose chord by chord? And I don't think one way is necessarily better than the other. I like both. But generally speaking, because rock and metal and jazz are more chord oriented than, say, like counterpoint oriented, generally they'll write more from what I would call a uh, up and down. That's vertical.
Vertical.
Up and
Vertical.
I'm not a math guy. I'm not. I barely passed geometry. I'm better with music. So they primarily write more vertically. Dufour comes from more of a classical background, so he writes more horizontally. He's more focused on the development, excuse me, of motifs than he is. So that I think makes him phenomenally interesting. So you'll notice in that composition that the entire piece is based around a left-hand motif that I'm playing using a combination of hammer-ons and pull-offs. Now, Tom, you mentioned that the piece looked very difficult to do, and it is. And I'll tell you something that actually made that performance even more difficult. When I made that recording, I actually had tennis elbow in my left arm. Uh, so every time I played, it was like, ow, 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 ow. And then that's tricky because, with your face, you have to give that smile,
Yeah.
um, but it is fun and it's definitely quite a bit rewarding. Now, one thing that I also tell to beginning fingerstyle players, sort of a basic rule of thumb, is that as you could see from the video, the genre is very much a two-handed thing. But well, all of guitar is, but any of the hands can take on many different roles. So, in order to just get yourself through the performance, the thing that I would advise most people to do, myself included, is whenever you're writing for fingerstyle, give at any one time, make sure that one hand is doing something really easy. That way you can focus more of your mental energy on the other hand. Now, in that piece, I didn't take my own advice. I'm dealing with this motif in this hand, and then I'm trying to hit these rather intricate artificial harmonics with my right hand. Now, one thing that I'd also like the listeners to know, I have no idea how this will come across, but one of the beautiful things about Zoom is that Zoom will sometimes speed up and slow down the music that comes through. I don't know if it will in this recording. Now, I do use a lot of tempo change as a composer just naturally,
Yeah.
but on the off chance you hear a sudden whoop or a sudden whoop, just think that I'm being more creative than I actually am.
Well, on that note, we have another piece of yours to share.
It's one of those pieces I always tell people. So, just for context, because I assume most of you watching this program have not heard that piece before.
No.
As you can see in the title, there was the Roman numeral 3 next to it. That means that was the third movement of a four-movement piece that I composed called Echoes. So, the overall composition, Echoes. In the first movement, I start with some very basic foundational ideas. In the second movement, I write a French jazz dance in which the melody is primarily played with artificial harmonics. So if you remember the section, the slow section in the middle of the third movement where I brought back harmonics, that was sort of me paying homage to the second movement. And then right after that, there's a moment where I take the actual first idea that I developed in the first movement and bring it over. The reason why I call this piece Echoes is I wanted for every movement, I wanted you to hear influences from each movement in every movement. So that third movement, you'll when you should you ever hear the whole piece, it'll make a lot more sense in that respect. But to answer your question about it being fun, the third movement, the whole piece as a whole, is the hardest piece I've ever tried to play on the guitar that I composed or that anyone else ever composed. And I'm not saying it's the best. I'm saying it's the hardest. But that third movement is a big reason why. So to answer your question, is it fun? I think it's fun once you've gotten through it, once you've landed some of the runs. But
Well,
during
we thought it was fun to listen to, so thank you so much, Thatcher. It's
it's
been
a lot easier this way.
delightful to talk with you and to share our love of music. Please register through Eventbrite to hear September Arts Event composer and guitarist Thatcher Harrison on Saturday, September 25th at 4 p.m. For more information, check out our website, dracutarts.com, or email us at dracutarts@gmail.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you.